Up. I'm your host, Anthony Harcher, a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. Today's episode is on sunshine therapy, and in particular for mental health and those that are struggling with anxiety, depression, or addictions. So I'm specifically focused on those three areas: anxiety, depression, and addictions, and how you can benefit from using sunshine therapy. So let's get under the way with what sunshine is really doing and supporting us in terms of our human evolution as well as our physiology. So, obviously, without light, there's no life. So, light is critical to life. And the disconnect today is that we live in an environment where we're so disconnected from light and therefore disconnected in a way from living a optimized life. So we really want to get that reconnection back with nature, reconnection back with the sun, because the sun has such an it's probably the most, well, certainly the most important aspect to our health and well-being, because without it, we don't exist. And so, in terms of what the sun is providing, is well beyond what we see in terms of visible light. So, obviously, there's visible light spectrum, which we see in terms of colors. And that's the color of the rainbow, is the colors of which we see the world and determine our reality through the visible light spectrum. But it goes beyond the visible light spectrum, and it's actually the areas beyond the visible light spectrum that provide significant health benefits to us, as well as the visible. So we certainly want to make sure we get full sunlight exposure in order to get the full spectrum. And so the sun, in terms of what it's emitting, is wavelengths from the non-visible, which is really short wavelengths, as well as extreme long wavelengths. And then there's a narrow band at which we can see light, or it's actually the visible spectrum. And so what I'm going to share today is how full spectrum sunlight really supports your mental health, and the importance of embracing full spectrum sunlight. And that's including UV light. Yes, UV light's been very much demonized, but it's essential for mental health. And the thing about sunshine and getting natural light is that it always comes fully packaged. It comes as full spectrum, and it complements one another. So each aspect of the light spectrum is supportive of one another and helps provide a real balance to our physiology, as opposed to very narrow band light. So you'll probably read a lot about photobiomodulation and low level light laser therapy and things like that. So those are very specific wavelengths for a particular health outcome. What I'm talking today is, the broader benefits for mental health, and how the full spectrum is supportive of your mental health ultimately. And when we get specific wavelengths and get that therapy for that particular ailment, yes, that's supportive of that ailment, but we're missing the much bigger, broader health benefits by not getting full spectrum sunlight. So it's really better to get full spectrum sunlight, as opposed to looking for those red light panels or that specific infrared sauna. So yes, we're getting some health benefits there, but we're missing, the broader benefits to our health by being in full spectrum sunlight. And full spectrum sunlight comes at no cost. There's no capital investment other than spending more time outdoors. So ultimately, at the end of this episode, you're going to be looking for ways to spend more time outdoors and minimizing your time indoors. Because when I mention narrow band light, that's what you're experiencing indoors. So our glass filters out UV light, and it filters out a large portion of infrared light. And that's UV, infrared light, are part of the non-visible spectrum, but are really important to our health and well-being. And so By being inside, we are just getting exposed to the lights that we're under, which are most likely LED lights, which are very narrow band spectrum lighting, which is very much blue light predominant. And so when our photoreceptors are outside experiencing full spectrum sunlight, it's yes, there's blue light there, but blue light's in the presence of infrared light, of red and others and other visible spectrum parts of the light exposure, as well as the UV light. And so our photoreceptors are seeing more than just blue light. And so just blue light is not really supportive of our physiology, because it's going to have a specific response on our physiology. And blue light alone, for example, when we're inside, is driving like middle of the day responses in the body without any supportive function of the other spectrum parts of the light, which are also complementing the blue light. And so what will happen is that blue light